Kurt, your takeaway from calling Eagles Chiefs on Westwood One Radio on Monday night is what?
Well, I mean, A, that they're both really good football teams.
Okay.
I think B, I came into it thinking that Philadelphia was the better team and would be able to dominate in the trenches. I left the game not thinking that Kansas City, I thought, outplayed them for the majority of the game and outplayed them in the trenches. They ran the football extremely well. Had over 120 yards rushing in the first half, which Philly hadn't given up all year. And Kansas City had that in the first half. You know, their defensive line, I thought, played great. Their defense as a whole played great. So I think I have a better appreciation for who the Chiefs are after last night's game, even though they ended up losing the game, than I did going in. Now, we all understand the issues. We saw the issues specifically at the key moments at the end of the game with their receivers, which has been an issue all year long, and I believe it's affected Patrick Mahomes in the way that he plays. But still, at the same time, you're playing against arguably the best team in the NFL, the best team in the NFC, and they dominated the game, and they should have won the game, in my opinion. So that's probably my biggest takeaway. I think the other thing you realize is that Philly never panics, and they can win a lot of different ways. We talk about it all the time on our show, that they are one of those teams that can win a lot of different ways. So last night, their offense just wasn't clicking. They weren't making big plays. They weren't doing very much, and their defense stepped up and kept them in the game and let them hang around, knowing that their quarterback and the playmakers on their team were eventually going to make plays. And I think that's the greatest thing about Philly right now is they're not clicking on all cylinders, but they've got enough ways to hang around in a football game and enough playmakers that they will find a way in the end to make the plays that they're supposed to make most of the time.
Of your take right there, Kurt, the one thing that leapt out at me that I want to dig into a little bit more is you're saying that you think the receiver issues in Kansas City, whether it's route running, whether it's catching the balls that, say, hit them in the hands, is affecting his way of playing. What do you mean by that? What are you seeing?
Well, what I've seen on tape is that, Patrick has been hesitant to throw the ball on time and attack certain throws and reads that I've seen him, make year in and year out since he came into the league, is that he doesn't get enough credit for how he plays inside the pocket, how he plays on schedule, to what he sees on every given play. And there are just a number of times this year where he just doesn't pull the trigger on throws, and I can't figure out why. I can't believe that's because he doesn't see it, because he's looking in the direction. He always sees that sort of stuff. So I have to believe it's hesitation because he's not sure what's on the other end. He's not sure either what guys are doing. He's not sure that they're going to make the play or what that is, but it's affecting his ability to play the game. And so that's, that becomes a whole nother concern, is that what makes him so good is playing that way and then adding the special of Patrick Mahomes on top of it. If he's just got to be the special, we talk about it all the time. If you just feel like you have to buy time and run around and make a play every single snap, even if you're Patrick Mahomes, it's really hard to live in that world instead of just being able to make the layups and throw what's in front of you and trust the guys to just make the mundane, routine plays. And I feel like right now he's going to keep slinging. He's going to keep throwing it to them. But there's, a level of frustration and there's a level of effect that it's having on Patrick and the way he plays the game.
And in terms of Philadelphia, Buffalo and San Francisco at home next before a visit to Dallas on a Sunday night, at Seattle over the next month. So there's some tough tests ahead of them. Which team do you think is best equipped? And it could be an AFC team as well. Could it be Baltimore? Could it be Miami if they start clicking on all cylinders? Which team do you think, or it's the team they beat last night, is best equipped to keep the Eagles from the championship podium this year? Kurt?
I'm going to probably say, and again, I always look at Philadelphia, and the first thing that I always think is the trenches. You got to be able to win the line of scrimmage against them. Just like I talked about Kansas City, why I thought they dominated the game last night was because they won the trenches. And so when I think about that, I think about, two teams, and one in the NFC, San Francisco. that is a team that can win the trenches. They obviously have playmakers and guys that can change the complexion of the game, but they can win the trenches. So I look forward to that game with a healthy Brock Purdy to see how that matchup plays out, because we didn't get to see that in the NFC Championship game last year. But that's one team. And then the other team, and again, I guess I got to say outside of Kansas City, because Kansas City surprised me, but showed me that they've got the ability to do that, I would say is Baltimore. Baltimore is another team that can win the line of scrimmage, whether that's in the run game or the pass game. They can win it up front. And then defensively, they do so many good things with their front, and they can get after you. And there's a lot of different guys that can sack the quarterback. So that is another team that I think could give Philly a run for their money if they match up.
Kurt Warner, my Hall of Fame friend from NFL Game Day Morning, Westwood One, and QB Confidential, where you can check it out on YouTube and on all social media outlets right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So watching the tape that you watch, Kurt, who is the quarterback that's seeing it, slinging it the best through 11 weeks in the NFL? What do you got for me here?
I actually just tweeted it this morning that C.J. Stroud is playing some really, really good football.
Look at him.
I broke down just the first quarter and a half, and I had like 10 plays that I could have put on one of my YouTube videos as teaching tape.
Really?
This is how you use your feet and your eyes and connect them together. This is the kind of timing you need to have on a particular throw. This is how you climb the pocket. It just so many good things that he's one guy that just jumps out at me right now, just in terms of playing inside the pocket, seeing it, processing it. So good. I think another guy is Brock Purdy. I know he took some hits a couple weeks ago when he was, throwing some interceptions. They were losing some games, but I tweeted that this morning too, is that he had a perfect quarterback rating this past Sunday. And I don't even think it was close to his best game this year. That, I think it was kind of lower on the list of games that he's had, just kind of worked out statistically that he gets a perfect rating, but he's played a lot better football than he even did this Sunday. So he's another guy that I know everybody wants to kind of knock him. And it's because of this. Man, you just don't play this consistently and make this many throws, and especially throws down the field, without being a really, really good quarterback. And I don't know when or what it's going to take for people to start believing that this kid is for real. And we see it each and every week. And so those are the two guys that really have jumped off the page. Obviously, different guys have flashes. I think Lamar's playing his best football. I don't think the situation around him as they build that offense is really clicking yet. So it's not as smooth as maybe it could be. But I think he's played some really, really good football too. And, of course, you've got, Patrick, but, I talked about some of the issues that I see there. And so that's why I say just kind of across the board, start to finish, those two young guys, to me, have really jumped off the tape, showing me that they really know how to play the game.
How about that? I'm asking you, it's Thanksgiving week of 2023. Who has been slinging it the best and seeing it and throwing it with consistency more than most? And you name the second overall pick in this year's draft and the last overall pick in last year's draft in a sports league that has just thrown one raw quarterback after another on the field 2 years in a row, Kurt. I mean, you take a look at the numbers at the quarterback spot. Last year, the most different starting quarterbacks in a single season in the history of the NFL, and I'm saying I see it since, in 1950. I go out and say, unless, like the Canton Patroons started 10 guys one year, I think this is the history of the NFL right here. Yeah. And 50 different starting quarterbacks have started through 11 weeks of 2023. Jake Browning will make it 51, for instance, this coming week for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that record from last year is being threatened right now. Tim Boyle will be 52, first up on Friday for the Jets. And I'm just wondering, how you get these guys ready. There's no time. We had a conversation, right, with Mike Vrabel in London about the Tennessee Titans quarterback situation with Malik Willis and Will Levis. Are they ready? And this is when Tannehill was about to get injured. Nobody knew. And he's like, I don't know. So how do you see the quarterback world right now, Kurt, where kids are all right and then mostly not.
Well, I think a big thing, and maybe, what we're seeing when I'm talking about guys like Brock Purdy and CJ Stroud is maybe something that we're seeing is, these guys that have truly learned how to play the position and have played the position a lot, even at lower levels, how that translates to the next level. We fall so much in love with the physical aspect of things anymore. And, we look at that, man, he's got this big arm or he can run around and do this. But sometimes those guys get away with a lot more because, quite honestly, they're the best athlete on the field. And if they're not seeing it, they can run around and create a play. When you get to this level, that is a really, really hard thing to do. Unless maybe you're a guy like a Kyler Murray or a guy like a Lamar Jackson, who still maybe at this level are the best athlete on the field. So they have room to kind of grow through, that growth period of learning more how to be a pocket passer and dissecting defenses. But that to me is, when you take these guys that aren't those kind of athletes, and then, just like you're talking about, you put them in and they're in a backup role and you don't have the reps to be able to teach them, to be able to, give them experience, seeing it, understanding the speed, understanding the process and the difficulty of an offense in the National Football League versus an offense, in college football. They just don't get the opportunity and experience to learn the game. And so Brock Purdy, we can say what we want about all the physical. The guy played 4 years in college and he got a whole bunch of experience playing the game. And that's exactly what I'm seeing on the field right now. And so that to me is where it's so limited now for these guys. And I don't know how you get them ready. I said this when I got cut by Green Bay way back in '94. And, at the time, you're crushed, you get cut, you were hoping to just make the squad, be the number 3 guy, whatever. I joke all the time, from the time I was cut in 1994 until the day I retired in 2009, Brett Favre did not miss a single start in the National Football League. He didn't miss a single start. So had I made it with the Packers, I would have been that guy. I would have been the guy sitting on the bench, hoping to get a few reps in preseason every single year, but never getting any reps to be able to get better. I got cut. I went and played in arena football for 3 years. I played in Europe for a year. I got so many reps of playing the game and experiencing the game and experiencing all situations of football that when I came back in '99, I was so seasoned as a quarterback and ready to step in and play, where these guys that we're talking about that find themselves in a backup role for a year, for 2 years, having not played really any football outside of a little bit of preseason, how do you get them ready? How are they prepared for all the stuff the NFL is going to throw at them? And I think that's what we're seeing. A few weeks ago, I was watching tape, and the thing that jumped off the page was I was watching some of these backups play, and I was just like, oh my gosh, the cavity between a starting quarterback in the National Football League and a backup quarterback just was so big when I watched these guys play that you start to appreciate those, however many guys that is, 22, 23, 25 guys in the world that are starting quarterbacks in the National Football League, because they're different than everyone else. So I think that's part of it too, is it's just different to be at that level. But the second thing is, with all the rule changes and everything now, no, developmental leagues, that was the thing. I was signed by the Rams, was able to go over to Amsterdam and play and get experience. That it really is hard to get those guys reps and to truly have someone ready to step in, because you look at the Bengals, who were hot, right? They're trying to make a run to the playoffs, and all of a sudden you plug somebody in and play that hasn't played any football. So even if they're eventually good enough, how long does it take them to get up to speed? Because you lose 2 or 3 games right off the bat, you're done. You're out of it. And, so it is such a tough thing. And I don't know what the answer is, to be able to get these guys ready and get them prepared. So whether he's a young guy that they want to eventually take over for the team, or just a backup that's got to step in and play, because we're seeing so many starting quarterbacks get injured, I don't know how you prepare them to be ready to go when they step between those lines.
And I know you were in the booth, Monday night calling Chiefs and the Eagles and then traveling. I don't know if you saw Tom Brady's conversation with Stephen A. Smith on Stephen A.'s show, where he said that the football in today is mediocre. It's a mediocre product. And I think you're kind of touching on that a little bit here, the delta between starting quarterback and backup quarterback. When I was growing up, the backup quarterback was a seasoned veteran, with a ton of time, most often than not. Now it's just a kid that makes less because of the salary cap, that doesn't get in, time in the offseason because it's legislated out. They can't enter the building until a certain time. They don't get reps on the amount of reps that people are allowed to have. The developmental leagues are gone, and they're the ones who are throwing guys not open. They're throwing guys into coverage. And then guys are getting blown up by defensive players who get fined and flagged for playing football because the quarterback and the offensive player doesn't know, don't go there. Pre-snap, the defense is telling you, don't go there. Don't throw it there. I think this is all mixed together here, Kurt,
There's no question. And, I have lots of theories on lots of different things that, in this world of football, we've got a lot more what I call pure progression type systems. And so what is a pure progression type system? It's a system that's set up where you get a play and the coach basically tells you, you're going to read it the exact same way, pure progression. This guy, the X receiver's number 1, the Y receiver's number 2, the Z receiver's number 3. Doesn't matter what the coverage is. That's how you're going to read it. And you're going to look at that receiver, and if that receiver's open, throw it to him. And if he's not open, then move to the next guy. Now, I understand the theory behind it. The theory is now I can take these young quarterbacks that don't get a lot of reps, don't get a chance to see defenses, and I can plug them in, and boom, they know the read's just 1, 2, 3, 4. They don't have to worry about anything. They just read it through. Or we've got a great athlete at the college level, and we want to play him early, so he hasn't learned all the nuances, so let's put him in a pure progression system, and he's just got to look and see if a guy's open, throw it to him. I think that's one of the most detrimental things for quarterbacks because you're not teaching them truly how to play the position. When you play the position, in my opinion, you let the defense dictate where you're going with it. So I don't want to ever look at my receiver and have to decide, is he open or is he not open? Is there enough space for me to throw it or not? I want to be able to look at a defender and go, okay, is that defender covering the deep receiver or the short receiver? And once I know that, I want to be able to get the ball out of my hand. So I'm reading both 1 and 2 at the same time, where another quarterback has to go 1, see if he's open, go to 2, and it slows the process down. And a lot of what you're talking about becomes when you're leading guys into coverage or you're throwing them, into defenders, it's simply because these guys are going, well, is he open or is he not open? I think there's enough space. Let me fit it in there, as opposed to kind of what Tom Brady's talking about and how he played the game. I'm going to let the defense dictate it. So if a defender's sitting there, I know I can't throw it there, and I move on to the next guy right now. And so there's all kinds of things that I think are going on in the league to try to say, okay, we got to get these young guys ready, and we got to get them on the field, and we got to figure out how to have success. And ultimately, those are the things, in my opinion, that are hurting these guys because it's not truly teaching them, even if we say that's at the college level. It's not truly teaching them how to play the position. So when they maybe make that transition to the NFL and they have to play the position, they don't know how. They're not ready to do it. And now they have to get up to speed against the best players in the world and the best schemes in the world. And it's why you see, so many of these guys struggle. And again, the guys that can survive, again, I'll use Kyler Murray as a guy here that's still learning how to play the position, but because he's such a gifted athlete and such a gifted thrower, he gets a little bit more time because he can create and do things that nobody else can do. So he buys himself extra time being successful with those other traits while he learns the game. But then there's a guy like me, I got no chance. I either have to know how to play the game or I am going to be swallowed up by this league. And I think that's what we see. Look at Zach Wilson, right? We've talked about him a lot. You being a Jets fan, he didn't play a lot in college. He's still learning how to play the game. He's got all these expectations because he was the number 2 pick overall, and he's not ready yet. he's not ready to play the game and to see it and to understand it, yet doesn't matter. He's in there, so we expect him to have to play at that level. And, you try to do some of this stuff. Okay, we're just going to give you pure progression stuff to give you a chance. And ultimately, it hurts them because I'm sitting here waiting to see if this guy's going to be open. Then by the time I get to the next guy or the next guy, I'm getting hit in the face. We're not blocking anybody. I've got absolutely no chance to play the game where you have to play it faster. So I have a lot of theories.
Yes.
But to Tom Brady's point, I think some of those theories lend itself to so many of these guys not truly understanding how to play the position, and it's leading to really, really bad football.
Great ball talk. Have a great Thanksgiving with Brenda and your fam, and we'll see you soon. You take care.
All right, you too, my man.
There's the one and only Kurt Warner. Great chat. Love talking ball with him. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.